Hey guys, today I wanted to talk to you about how I got my start in privacy, what made me get interested in internet privacy and uh, data security and topics like that, and then why I started this YouTube channel and why I really wanted to share, the information that I've learned over the years with you guys. Um, so first of all, how did I get interested in privacy? Well, um, I was doing some social media and SEO work for a company that created, some privacy tools, some encrypted uh, search tools, and kind of some other privacy tools. And so that involved me doing a bunch of research and reading up on the best privacy tools and being able to make recommendations of related tools to my clients' niche. I'd read a post about, or do some research about encrypted file encryption tools, private search engines, VPNs was a big one, and I wrote hundreds of blog posts about these things, and um, a lot of the time I'd come across an article discussing the legal implications of online privacy, how businesses were, getting sued by different um, regulating agencies and different organizations for losing control of their customers' data. So I kind of was drawn to that. I took a class in college on privacy in the digital age. So I already had that as a background. And so reading about these privacy tools and reading about big high profile data breaches really kind of brought back what I had learned in college and kind of gave it a real world application. As I learned more about the different ways to protect your privacy online, like the different tools you can use, the different strategies you can use to protect your data, I wanted to share that information with other people beyond just writing those blog posts, around the internet. So um, one trend that kind of always gets brought up when you're just discussing privacy tools is surveillance capitalism and other uses for big data. So surveillance capitalism is when a company like um, Google, for example, does surveillance. So that doesn't have to be some guy sitting in your front yard watching you. It could be, Google's collecting information about what your searching habits are, what your internet browsing habits are, your location history, and they use that information um, to make money. So surveillance capitalism. They're using the data they collect through surveillance to make money, and they monetize the heck out of that data, and they do a really good job of it. Um, and that's criticized by the tools that focus on privacy because that's kind of their selling point. Is there's there's a risk of you giving Google, Facebook, Amazon, giving companies access to your data, because when you hand over your data, right now they might just use it to show you ads for running shoes because you searched for running shoes on Google. But in the future, that could be the government accessing that data and saying, "Oh, well, we saw that you searched for, um, a left-wing site that was criticizing the president, and so we're gonna not allow you to get a loan because we don't trust." Just all sorts of different applications about what they could do in the future, or kind of shadier ways to monetize that data. Um, Say if some Chinese company with bad intentions buys Google, something kind of that seems ridiculous right now. In 10 to 15 years, once Google's amassed all that data about everyone in the United States or in the world or whatever, some company could come in and purchase that and then use that information to control people. And we've already seen stuff like that happening in places like China, where citizens are given scores based on their trustworthiness or whatever in the eyes of the government. And that score actually determines if those people are able to get loans, if they're able to go certain places. Um, and that being a reality in the United States is pretty scary because we don't see that as a possibility. But in places like China or, you know, North Korea, where there's oppressive governments, that's pretty scary if there's massive amounts of data. And anytime you might search the web for something criticizing them, you could literally be putting your life at risk or just hindering your ability to move up in society. So that's a big issue. And I think most people ignore that because on a day-to-day basis, they might use Google 150 times. They might log on to Facebook 50 times. And right now, that just seems normal. And they think, well, even if Google is hacked, if Facebook is hacked, my data is hidden, amongst millions of other people. And that's a good argument, as long as you aren't concerned about the government or that company misusing that data at any point in the future. So privacy tools are widely available. There's many of them for free. These are just alternatives to things like Google, Facebook, YouTube, etc. And I want to spread awareness so that people know that these privacy tools are out there. Because I've had conversations with people about privacy related tools, like DuckDuckGo is a good example. Like, hey, have you ever tried DuckDuckGo as a search engine? And they've never even heard of it. I had a professor in college who was really, really big on DuckDuckGo and would always use that in front of the class when he was searching for things on his computer in class. So, I was introduced to it 5 years ago, but many people have never heard of it. And that was kind of hard for me to imagine, especially because I was kind of, my head was so buried in this privacy stuff that it was almost impossible to do any research on privacy tools without coming across DuckDuckGo. So normal people in their everyday lives don't come across these things. And DuckDuckGo is just one example, but there are plenty of other privacy tools out there that are doing great things and are making a difference, but they might only have, tens of thousands of users as opposed to the billions of users that things like Google and Facebook have. So I just want people to be more aware of what's going on and how Google and Facebook kind of are collecting your data, and they're actually doing a lot to market that to you in a way that makes it seem like, oh, that's a pretty good idea. Like Google's pitch is kind of that, well, we're personalizing your internet experience. So if you go on Google Chrome and you search for something, well, we're going to know what you've searched for in the past, so we have a pretty good idea of what you're looking for. And that can drastically improve your user experience. There's no doubt about that. But if people are just blindly feeding into these data ecosystems, those companies just grow more and more powerful and are using that information to feed, AI systems and machine learning to the point where those systems can predict our behavior. And so those companies are essentially, able to predict our behavior before we even know it. And that's scary to me just because they can use that behavioral data to, influence our buying behavior right at the second that we're considering, should I buy this or that? And then, they know that we're considering these two things because of our browsing history, and they're able to charge one of those companies to put an ad right there so that we're reminded to buy from that company. I think that even though this is working right now and, people aren't widely, like the mainstream isn't widely concerned with big companies like Google and Amazon and Facebook collecting all this information, I think at some point down the road, it could drastically hurt our user experiences online if we're constantly just being flooded with super contextual ads that are hyper targeted to where they could even put our name and other like very sensitive information into those ads and just influencing our behavior like that because of the years of behavioral data that they've collected from us. I think this kind of feeds into another issue, which is like the ad-supported model of the internet. And if companies like Facebook and Google, which are the internet's two largest advertisers, are able to improve their advertising system so much that it draws away from any other content that we put out there, like, say this video, for example, if I'm not able to get people to see this because companies like Google and Facebook, they know what someone wants to watch. So they'll put something else in front of them that they're more interested than this, even though, my video or my blog post or whatever may actually have more important information or more accurate information on a given topic. So that brings me to probably my last point, which is filter bubbles. That's another big issue that DuckDuckGo specifically focuses on in providing value to its users. So filter bubbles are the effect of companies like Google, Facebook using algorithms to serve up content. So if I search for news and Google knows that I have, let's say I'm far on the left, Google will know that I'm probably looking for a left-leaning news site and only show me results from those sites. And this can sound great because, I'm not even interested in stuff on the right. But when it comes to, scientific searches or something, if Google thinks that I want to see one opinion, they might just completely hide the conflicting opinions. And I just go further and further into this filter bubble, believing that my viewpoints are the correct way or the most important or whatever, just because Google failed to show me the broad range of information. So that's another thing privacy tools can do, is they take out the biases that result from the algorithms that Google, Facebook, Amazon, all these big companies use because they want you to stay on their service. They want you to feel like you're getting the most convenient experience, when in reality, they're just hiding, a big part of the internet's information from you. So that's just some of my background, how I got into the whole privacy sphere, why I'm interested in privacy, how I've kind of made my way through the privacy journey, and just encouraging you to be more aware of how the tools you're using online work and what they're actually doing. So good luck. I hope this helped. Subscribe if you made it all the way here. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it.